He's a primary catcher, middle infielder, second base is a secondary. My mother's a 30-year dietitian. She's still active and being a dietitian. And then my father, he's a 30-year retired mechanic for the company called Crown. It's like a forklift company. I have two siblings, one brother, one sister. My brother's 2 years younger than I. My sister's 9 years younger than me. My sister actually is currently stationed at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, which is only about 2.5 hours from here. Her husband's a 25 Quebec, so he seeks mentorship quite often. But they're not too far, so I've got family somewhat close to where I'm at here at Fort Knox. I hold a master's degree in information technology, but I had to baby step it, right? So I started out with an associate's. The whole crawl, walk, run phase really, I had to put that into play for myself, between deployments and, PME and all the other activities that are required to promote through the ranks and be successful. And I'll define success here in a little bit, but I eventually got my master's completed, and I did that in 2016. I've highlighted a couple goals in the upper right-hand corner there. I'll tell you that, making an impact in my current position, and actually all positions, is a fairly important one, but the most important goal out of all those goals, I would say, is to continue to improve upon my family and career balance. I think that's important as a leader, right? To have that balance. And I will tell you, at times it's easier to say it than do it, but you have to find time to find that balance with your family. I hold many certifications, so I didn't list them all. I just listed the vendors there. But in the Army, I would tell you that while 8570 is applicable, what you bring to the fight may not be necessarily what's on paper, right? Performance ultimately is what matters. My experience is at basically all levels, and we'll get into that here in a second. So next slide, please. So where have I been, right? So I'll start from the bottom and work my way up, and this is why I call it the unconventional path. I started out at 5th Special Forces Group. It's located at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. As a W1, that's where I started out, and ironically, that's where I was at as my last assignment as an enlisted guy. So it worked out pretty good for me, for a seamless transition. But I'll tell you, there was a lot of struggle there when I did that. So I didn't really challenge myself by going back to an organization I was very familiar with. So at 5th Group, I had 3 big roles, right? The first role was I was standing up a new battalion. It was 4th Battalion, 5th Group. It was the first of all the 4th battalions that they were standing up during that time. So they appointed me as the S6 OIC to stand up the shop, to coordinate personnel, and bring in the equipment set in for that organization. Being the S6 and trying to do all of that as a brand new W1, you can only imagine the tasks that become quite daunting. So I was the S6. I was the SIG-DET commander, which is the signal detachment commander, which is usually a lieutenant. And then I was the signal technician as well. All in all, I did about just shy of 4.5 years there, several rotations to the Middle East and other unnamed locations. The experience was great, right? It was, to me, I think it was good for a first job coming into the warrant officer cohort, or the warrant officer mafia, as we used to call it back then. Many of you guys probably still call it that, but to me, it was very seamless, and I knew what I was going into, so I could only magnify my skills while there. But being an S6 and standing up a new battalion was something completely different, so there were quite some challenges. So I did my time at 5th Group in those 3 positions, and then I moved on to JCSE, Joint Communication Support Element. And for all you guys that are in there that are 1/12 JCSE folks that like to, there's a battle between the 2 organizations, I would tell you it's one team, one fight, right? You provide similar capabilities just to different organizations. But at JCSE, I held 2 positions. I was the Information Assurance Manager for about 18 months, almost 2 years. And then for the final year, I was the J3 Director, Senior Technical Advisor for Current Ops and Automation to improve automation policy. While at JCSE, we managed about 5 or 6 teleports during that time, and or step sites, however you want to call it. And being a 255 Alpha, I'm sorry I didn't say that up front, but I'm an Alpha. I got real versed in what Novembers did between fifth group and JCSE. And so I learned a lot about not just the LAN side of the house, but the WAN side as well, and how you manage traffic across big networks. But my tenure at JCSE was well enjoyed, and that was my first introduction to dealing with a lot of civilian employees, right? So MacDill is an awesome place to be, but those of you that have never been stationed at MacDill, you probably look at it as, oh man, that's a easy assignment to go to. Well, I'll tell you, I spent most of my time abroad and away, or TDY. My family, they enjoyed it quite a bit. And when I was home, I did as well. But JCSE was a good experience. And then I left JCSE. I was selected to be the Army Materiel Command down at Huntsville, Alabama. The Army Materiel Command 4-star General Officer CG Combo Team OIC. I served there with General Vi and then General Perna. And now it's General Daly, but the two GOs there I served with was Perna and General Vi. If you have never worked for a general officer, I'll tell you, you learn a lot. And at AMC, working in that position and working forward activities and making sure communication platforms and assets are available at each location they go to, along with making sure stuff is available in the rear, it can be quite the challenge. But I'll tell you, it was a very busy and rewarding job that I won't forget. I got a chance to meet a lot of folks, traveling around with those guys, and when you start talking about your reputation and your performance and what all that means, when you start doing FaceTimes with individuals at those locations, that's when it really hits home, and people start saying, oh, I know who you are, I know what you're doing great things. That words of affirmation, that really sets in for you. And so anyways, yeah, I left Huntsville. I only did about a little over 2 years there. Left Huntsville, went to the Joint Staff at the Pentagon, where I did an additional 2 years there. It was interesting on the Joint Staff because leading up to the Joint Staff, I was so used to doing hands-on and being on the equipment and, just being able to, what I thought to be effective communications for the people that I worked for. On the Joint Staff, you're not putting your hands on equipment. You're staffing what's required for those that put their hands on the equipment, they need, right? So on the Joint Staff, I got a little more exposure to the joint community, talking with combatant commands and coalition forces, and just working those initiatives at that level. Very strategic position to be in. You get to meet a lot of folks in and out of the building. They call it the building, the Pentagon, and so you get a chance to meet a lot of folks coming in and out of there. The job there was very rewarding, working with the Office of Secretary of Defense and other interagency levels. And so I thought I did well there. I worked for general officers while I was there as well. And my tenure there, instead of doing 3 years on the Joint Staff, I ended up doing 2 years because I was nominated and selected to come here to HRC, which is where I currently am. So now I'm at HRC, managing alongside with Eric Page, managing roughly 1,100 of you guys that are active duty, anywhere from board scrubs to file updates, to file assessments, to board analysis and strength reports and ATARs and PME reservations. That's just to name a few, right? And so I'd like to say that we're doing a good job here and supporting you guys out in the field the best we can. And if I'm not, please send me a note and I'll try to rectify that. But so I'm here at HRC now, and I'm a BZ look this year for W5. We know how competitive it is for Signal to be picked up BZ, so my cards aren't all in on that deck, but next year's my primary look. And so what I've done for myself, and I'll elaborate that here in a minute on why I did it, but I've strategically worked an assignment to remain here on Fort Knox to support my family requirements, and I'll talk about that here in a minute. But so that brings me to where I've been, right? And so one thing I want to capture amongst all these assignments is the perception at each location, right? More importantly, this location in specific. I never wanted to come to Fort Knox, and I heard all kinds of stuff about Fort Knox that I never really wanted to participate in. And now have been here, I will tell you that this is a hidden gem. and I would encourage anybody that has the opportunity to come here to do so. Louisville is a great town, and this isn't my pitch to recruit people to come here, but the bottom line of this is what I want to say is every assignment that you go to, take it for what it is. Go in there with an open mind, regardless of what you thought of the location was going to be when you got there. And so that's my spill on where I've been and my perception of those locations. Any questions on any of that right there? I'll just pause for a second. Okay, no questions. Move on to the next slide, please. So what is success, right? Some would say that the definition of success is that the ability to find solutions for the boss that you work for. You know, that could be true, right? And as warrant officers, we want that to be true, right? Success is that you brought them a solution, they're happy with it, you met their end state, and you're good to move out, right? And then, you know, I put a quote underneath there by the co-founder of Uber. Every problem has a solution. You just have to be creative enough to find it. That's true. But as warrant officers, you know, it's our job, and I believe it's our responsibility to prevent many solutions to them to make a decision on. But in this instance, this isn't why I brought up what is success. I brought up what is success because I want you guys to think about what is successful and what does success mean to you, right? And I don't mean just as a warrant officer, I mean in life in general. And I couch it that way because during CW5 Link McCoy's session last month, I asked him the similar question, right? And while he may have presented it in a fashion that success is about how well you do for the person you work for, it's much greater than that, at least to me, right? And so I wanted to bring that up to you guys as food for thought, that success is what you determine it to be, not just in your work role, but also in your life as well. Okay, so next slide, please. Okay, so I wanted to share with you my baseball card, right? And the reason why I wanted to share my baseball card with you is because I think it's important that you not only have a career timeline for yourself, but for your family as well. I think it's important that your leaders, both your rater and senior rater, understand what objectives, short-term, long-term goals, what you're planning to do in the future, right? And so as you can see on my baseball card, I got the cheesy photo on the left-hand side. I got my short-term goals, my long-term goals. Generally speaking, my short-term goals are geared more towards the organization that I work for, right? Yeah, I threw my PME in there and I was able to accomplish it, but generally speaking, I try to focus on the initiatives that my unit wants me to achieve. And as you can see in there, that second bullet there, work HRC initiatives and synergize efforts across the regiment. That's probably the most important one, right? Gaining the trust and confidence, I think, is a pretty generic statement to say and do. But I also think that doing just that can be challenging depending on the person that's trying to combat that. And of course, long-term goals, you know, we all want to be at the highest level. We all want to be CW5s or general officers or sergeant majors at one point in our career, right? And so what I would tell you, a long-term goal should always remain to remain competitive at that long-term goal that you've always wanted to achieve. And so you have to voice that, but you also have to be real with yourself too, and know whether or not you're competitive for that moving forward. And so that's where we'll get on the discussion about networking and having a good friend relationship, mentorship relationship. But I'll talk about that here in a second. But anyways, this is my baseball card, and one thing I want to point out on my baseball card is you know, I got my child's timeline on there. I only have one child, and as you can see in the blue box that's kind of grayed out, that's my HRC time, right? I knew my HRC time was going to overlap with my son's high school time, and I had to figure out how to balance that with my career, right? And so fortunately, being an HRC, I have the ability to be able to transition into another job that's here at HRC that will allow me to support most of that timeline. And I say that word most in a keyword phrase because, as I mentioned to you earlier, I'm being considered for CW5 in the next board. And if I'm selected, you know what that means. I have to fill a CW5 vacancy somewhere within the Army. And I'll tell you, there's 32 positions right now, soon to be 33, with the stand-up of 22nd Signal Brigade. W5 should be sitting in those W5 positions, right? Because that's where we bring the most value to those leaders. There's obviously an authorization there for a reason for us to serve in. And so I've rolled that into my consideration in my timeline that I may have to depart here as a W5 and go serve in one of those positions. But my child's timeline is still going to be where it's at. And so I have to be able to balance that. And so part of this baseball card is you having discussions with your leaders, your mentors, your family on what your plans are, right? And so I would encourage you, if you don't have a baseball card, if you want to steal this baseball card, or if you want me to share this baseball card with you, I can, or just develop your own one that makes sense for you. So any questions that I've talked about thus far between where I've been, what I think about success, and the baseball card approach to things?
Hey, Chief, I got a question on the personal family timeline. So what are you basing that off of? Is that schools? Is that, away time? Help me understand that. I've actually never seen that, so that's really neat.
Yeah, so my timeline is based on my son's high school graduation. And before that, it was really his elementary school leading up to it, right? And so as I look at this particular timeline that's on your screen, I know my son in 2018 was only, I was gonna be at 16 years in the Army. He's only been in 7th grade, so middle school. And really, I only do about, 7 or 8 years out. And so I would encourage you to just make a timeline that works for you, that you're able to brief to your leaders, that they understand, and that your family understands. That way you guys are on the same wavelength, on the same level as you guys are talking about your career progression and the family's next move on what they're going to do next, etc. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay. Any other questions out there? Okay. Next slide, please. All right. So the slide I have in front of you, I stole. Well, I guess I didn't steal. I reacquired it. It's an HRC slide. It's part of the signal branch brief that we present. And the reason why I have it here is mainly for that first bullet in the upper left-hand corner, developing versatile strategic leaders, right? And so to develop versatile leaders, we must develop them through, a series of developmental assignments. And as you could tell in my previous assignments, they weren't the traditional brigade to division, division to corps, etc. Right? But it is critical for officers to focus on future assignments by completing some level, if not all levels, obviously, of the stages of the developmental pyramid. And like I said, not all the levels are going to be created equal. So some would say, there's two sides of the coin, right? There's the soft joint side and there's the conventional Army side. And while you've seen folks that have done extremely well on the soft joint side, they've stayed there their whole time and they still made W5. That's one way of success, right? They've done good. They've still hit those peers. They've started out somewhere at the bottom and they've made their way to the top. They've hit their PME gates, their civilian education gates, and other educational requirements. And then on the other side, the conventional side, they did it the traditional way. The brigade, division, corps, ASCC, combatant command. They stuck broadening in there somewhere, right? But throughout there, they did their PME and civilian ed as well. And so the bottom line statement behind this pyramid is there's really no correct way. There's just a way, right? And I would tell you, as long as you're hitting those gates and making sure you're knocking out the PME when you're supposed to, and going from tactical to strategic, and sometimes there's a bump, right? Sometimes you got to go tactical to tactical or strategic to strategic. And while this isn't an HRC brief, I would tell you, if I was given this brief, that you are your own career manager, and we just help facilitate what we can based on the new ATAP rules that we're charged with here at HRC. We are the execution arm for DAG1, the ATAP process. And so what I would tell you is, as your own career manager, you should help us as career managers advise you best, right? And so I would just challenge you to make sure you're hitting the gates where you need to hit them, and seek counsel from not only us, but from your mentors that are close to you, CW5s, CW4s, whatever level that you're at, where you're at, just seek that mentorship and that counsel while you can. Because ultimately what I'm trying to get at with this pyramid is senior leaders want, strategic, forward thinking personnel working for them, right? They want those versatile leaders that they can engage with at all times, and know that they can be relied upon and are trustworthy to help them accomplish their required tasks. And so that's the point I was trying to get across with this career progression, just making sure you hit those gates, and that there's no conventional true path for you to go up, that you kind of glide up it in some manner, some shape or some form. You go up there and you'll eventually get to where you need to be by hitting those gates, as long as you do it in a successful manner. Are there any questions on this particular slide?
Hey, Chief, it's Chief Gonzalez. You got a few questions for you there in the chat.
All right, let's see here. How do you incorporate timeline for future jobs in the AIM process if the computer is deciding assignments? So, sir, that's a great question, and I'll tell you. I'm sorry, Chief Parler asked that question. Great question. I would tell you that if you haven't heard how the process works, I encourage you to give me a call, and I can talk you through that entire process. But in short, I want you just to imagine one thing, and I share this analogy with everybody I talk to, right? There's a distribution conference where jobs get validated, okay? Those vacancies get validated in, and this is my only HRC thing, right? That distribution conference, I want you to imagine this, everybody in the room, imagine a courtroom setting where you got a judge and two lawyers, okay? One lawyer advocates purely on the unit and the unit's concern and the strength only, okay? They only care about numbers. They could care less about who fills the requirement. The other lawyer is me. It's Eric Beige. We care about you guys, our population, the considerations you guys bring in front of us, what you're trying to do moving forward, and we bring that and we present that to the judge, right? So if you're a W4 and you've served, the traditional method of brigade, division, and now you're looking for that core or next level ASCC job, it's our job to go to the conference, to go to that judge and say, hey, sir, we really need to get this type of job in the marketplace for these individuals, not purely singling out the individual that's requesting it, but to get it in the marketplace for you guys to have a chance to preference. And in order to incorporate your timeline into those jobs, I would tell you that look on AIM and look at all the jobs and all the vacancies and get an idea of the type of job you want, not the specific job you want, and incorporate that into your timeline. Did that answer your question? I'll take silence as consent. Okay, so can you share the slide? Oh, slide's already shared. So I've answered all the questions. Any more questions?
Hey, Chief, there's another question for you in the chat.
You've had some cool assignments. Some people feel trapped on the conventional assignment track. How do individuals line themselves up for more non-conventional jobs? So I would tell you that this new ATAP process is a new beast, and you've kind of, this is Chief Flott, right? Yep, Chief Flott. This new ATAP process has kind of put your career in your hands, and I say it in that fashion for two reasons. The first reason is this. It gives you the ability to reach out to those units that you're interested in, to advocate for yourself, to have interviews with those commanders and present your KSBs, your knowledge, skills, and behaviors to them and what you bring to the table for them. It's really no different than if you were trying to compete for a civilian job with IBM or AWS or whomever it may be, right? You need to advocate for yourself to that command and that leadership to present your best self to them so that they select you in the marketplace amongst all others that you're competing with. The assignments that I held were pre-ATAP, okay? performance matters, your reputation matters, and I'll tell you, your reputation matters immensely. People know you, they know of you, they talk about you, whether you know about it or not, right? And so the AMC job, I knew nothing about it. I never wanted to really go to Huntsville. I never knew there was a job at Huntsville. But I'd like to say my reputation got me there. Same thing with the joint staff and now with HRC. Instead, I would tell you is, if you feel like you're trapped in those conventional assignments, I'm going to be blunt here and say, put forth more effort in advertising your capabilities to those commands that you're interested in, that are available to you in your marketplace, so they seek you over all others. And I hope that I wasn't too raw there, but I want to be raw there so you understand that you are your own career manager in this instance, that we are just facilitators here now with this new ATAP process. Did that answer your question, Mr. Flaunt?
It does, Mike. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Are there any more questions?
This is Chief Buchanan, 17 Fires. Has
Yes,
has the marketplace implemented the filter for EFMP cases as of today, and is that filter working correctly? Over.
So, hey, sir, like, I know this is an HRC brief, but I'll tell you in short, no, it has not. EFMP and MACP are separate actions outside of the marketplace. Are on, oddly as it sounds, they are on separate systems, so they're not synchronized with one another. But to be more boldly on that, EFMP is a unique instance where officers don't even know where they're cleared to go to before the marketplace opens, so we don't know where to screen them against. And I'll leave it at that. Any other non-HRC related questions? And I hate to say it like that. I know this is an LPD for 7th ID, and we can dive deep into HRC stuff, but I want to try and make sure I'm staying on the objective here. Okay, so no questions heard. Next slide, please.
Hey, Chief, you have a question for you. Stand by.
I'm not seeing the question you said I have.
It's for Major Spencer, but his microphone's muted right now. We'll come back to it, Chief. Just go ahead.
Oh, okay. I see a question in here. It says, how much do you market yourself and how do you market yourself, right? And so I'm not sure who asked that. I think it was Chief Flaunt that asked it, maybe Chief McCoy. How do you market yourself? Well, I'll tell you, as a warrant officer, you have a plethora of knowledge and skills that you brought to the table as an enlisted guy or gal. And what you've done as an enlisted person should not be overlooked, right? I would tell you that depending on the unit you're seeking out, you need to find mechanisms that you bring value to them, right? So if I'm seeking out this is going to sound kind of funny. If I'm seeking out a division job, right, and I'm a W3, given where I've been, right, 5th group, and we'll stop at the joint staff. Maybe we'll stop at AMC, right? And I've never served at division. Yeah, I think I'll be successful at division, just because that's my personality, and and I think that's most warrant officers' personality is to drive for success. How I would approach that job is I would look at the capabilities that they are engaged in, and I would find how my past experiences can relate. So being at 5th group, working TAC land stuff, working SDN mediums, lights and heavies, working small aperture and large aperture satellite communications, how does that weigh in at the division? Well, I can properly plan and execute missions at the division level. And if I was having a frank conversation with the G6 and I was seeking an opportunity with that division, I would bluntly ask them why I was not qualified to serve in that capacity. You just gotta be You just gotta be out there and advertise yourself. What you bring to the table for that unit. I don't know how best way to shape that than to say it like that. You guys all have a lot of talents. We're warrant officers, and you have to talk about yourself. And right now, I'm being honest with all of you guys. I feel uncomfortable about talking about myself. I'd rather talk about one of you guys, right? We as warrant officers would rather be behind the scenes making things happen for that leader that we're working for, so they get the spotlight, right? And so just market yourself the best way you know how to, and always seek feedback, right? I expect you guys to give me feedback on how good or bad I did on this brief that I'm providing you right now, right? And I'm sure I'm going to catch a lot of flack from the W5s who I speak with regularly, and they're probably going to go tell me to go take a speaking class somewhere or something, a Toastmasters class, right? But nonetheless, just market yourself the best way you know how to, and always seek that feedback so you know where you stand with that leadership that you're speaking with. I see another question here. It says, in one of your values, you stated authenticity as one of them. How do you personally integrate authenticity with your profession, and how did it help you progress through many of your positions? So, sir, authenticity, right? Authentic. I'm being authentic right now. Be yourself, right? People tend to like individuals that are themselves than somebody that's phony and fake. Okay, be authentic. Be authentic in who you are, right? As I said before, I'm from Rhode Island and from South Carolina. I can flip the coin, right? I can be that northern, outspoken individual that happens in the New England area, and I can be that southern, reserved, quiet, sit behind the scenes individual that's brought up in the South, right? Just be who you are, and that will show authenticity to the folks you work around. And how did it help you progress through many of your positions? I'll tell you that having now served for several general officers, and many of the other individuals that are on here right now that are currently working for general officers will tell you that they want somebody of high integrity, that is authentic, that comes to them with honest, candid information, stuff that they can move out on and make decisive decisions on. I think that my reputation preceded itself, and that is how I've ended up where I'm at today at HRC. I think of myself, and I hate talking about myself. I think of myself as a good person that truly wants the best for everyone. And I'll tell you, in this position at HRC, that has been quite the task. And anybody that sat here will tell you that it is very challenging to make everyone happy. And just be authentic no matter where you're at. Be yourself and do your job the best you can. I hope that answered your question, sir. Yeah, somebody just said be the first-rate version of yourself, not the second-rate, and I agree with that, right?
Hey, Chief, this is Chief Gonzalez. You have a few gentlemen with their hands raised.
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Vaughn.
So, I don't know how I got invited to this, but it's awesome, and I really appreciate your time. I'm a reservist, and I'm on IMA orders at the Pentagon with the CIOG-6, and I will tell you that I've prided myself on being authentic, but I've learned recently that the authenticity is not always. Somebody put it to me that you have to learn how to eat with a fork and knife to be invited to the table, right? And I've never heard that, and I've always to hide behind the shield of being a warrant officer of, it's not my privilege to accept risk, but it's my duty to make sure that it's not sugar-coated for those that need to make informed decisions. I've always lived and died by that. But the lack of strategic communications training that we get or get access to as warrant officers, that has significantly hindered me. I mean, I came from a functional command with the ARCPB straight to the Pentagon based on my skills and my knowledge in cybersecurity. But being at the Pentagon, you know, that's a whole different ballgame. And without knowing or having to how the Army runs or any action officer development courses, I spent the first 6 months of this assignment really just learning when to talk, when not to talk, and you know, certainly made a lot of mistakes learning that the hard way. So you know, I really appreciate your comment about authenticity, because you know, I'm one of 36 warrant officers assigned to the Pentagon, and I'm the only cyber warrant officer, and I'm a reservist. So you know, I came in completely disadvantaged. It was my skills that got me here, but they're not going to get me to the next level. And this is the first time I've ever really been concerned about, like, you know, shit, am I actually going to be CW5 material, right? Because this is the first time that I've ever really had it handed to me by SESs. And you know, I haven't pissed off a general officer yet, but SESs, and they give it to me all the time. So and they can be just as much a problem for your career as a general officer can. So I really do appreciate the time that you're taking for us.
No, I appreciate your input, and I'll tell you, Mr. Vaughn, sitting in the Pentagon was definitely a humbling experience for me as well. I think it is for most that get their first assignment in the Pentagon. I'll give you a quick story on the Joint Staff, right? So I get to the Joint Staff, and Todd Daugherty, CW5, retired Todd Daugherty's there. He takes me under his wing, brings me all these different offices that are there, introduces me to different folks, and then he decides to drop the retirement packet, right? And I end up having to fill his shoes, right? And I hate to use that phrase, fill his shoes, because we have our own shoes to fill, but I ended up stepping up to his role, right? The Joint Staff has two positions within it, two signal positions, a W5 position and a W3 position. The W5 position is the direct senior technical advisor to that 3-star in that front office. The W3 works in one of the directorates, and while I was there, I worked in a sub-directorate that worked for a 1-star. But when I had to move into that 3-star capacity, and I was expected to bring that authentic ground truth information stuff to the table, to the leaders that Todd Daugherty had to do the same for, it was eye-opening, right? So I'm sitting in the DoD CIO office in one of their many sessions that I usually sat on the wall for, and the CIO himself says, "Chief, come sit at the table. You're sitting in for your 3-star." And I'm like, "Oh, what's going on here?" Right? And so to be at a table with all those SESs and general officers is humbling in itself. And you want to make sure that you are authentic, but you're also, and I'm going to use this word for those of you out there that don't do it, right? Be filtered, right? And I highlight and captured that word, be filtered, very boldly, because when you're unfiltered at times, even though you are authentic, it can come across the wrong way, right? And if you present yourself in the wrong way because you are unfiltered in the manner in which you presented it, you can develop a bad reputation for yourself. So I would encourage you, if you're that unfiltered person, to look yourself in the mirror and figure out how to dial it back some, but still remain authentic to yourself in that fashion. But no, all great points, Mr. Vaughn. I appreciate your input on that.
That's exactly the lesson I learned, though, is I've always been known as that unfiltered person, not in a way that I was an asshole about it, but I have a very low tolerance for being incorrect or folks being incorrect when they're talking about something. And at the table at the Pentagon, you know, we're not talking about $100,000 contracts. We're talking about $100 million contracts and higher, you know, that are going to have a 5 to 10 year impact on the force. And you know, that hit me like a ton of bricks, that we've got all these people that claim to be experts giving senior leaders advice, and they're dead wrong, right? And I felt that as a warrant officer, that's what I was there for, was to be an advisor and to provide senior leaders with information that was unbiased and not based on, you know, whether a contract was going to get awarded or not. And I learned very quickly that folks didn't always want to hear what they needed to hear. They, you know, that's where that whole filtered piece comes in.
So I'll tell you this, Mr. Vaughn, right? And I want to answer some other questions. You got to be tactful, and I think somebody just said that. You got to be tactful about it, right? It's good to be passionate about what you do, but you can't hold on to it. We're not, as warrant officers, we're not decision makers. We go to the table with solutions to problem sets that we're asked to look into, and at the end of the day, that leader has to decide amongst the COAs that you presented, right? When that's done, you got to move on to the next thing. You can't hold on to that. You know, we're their counsel, we're their advisor, we're who they look to for that advice, right? And I would just tell you that the unfiltered piece, you just gotta learn how to be tactful about how you present things. And so I know that Chief Makuakane had his hand raised, and I'm looking at his question here. It says, Chief, I have a few questions for the W1s, W2s, W3s that aspire to get promoted, but also finish advanced degrees. How do you plan your master's degree getting completed while having such a busy work-life balance? Well, let me answer that one first, right? So you got to find time, right? And I hate to say that phrase, you got to find time, right? While I was working on my degrees, like I said, crawl, walk, run, right? I had aspirations to get my bachelor's degree done first, and that wasn't looking good. I kept deploying and going to PME and coming back. And then we had our son, and all that got tied in. So what I did was I started with my associate's degree, and I stayed up late, very, very late, 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning to accomplish what I wanted to accomplish. I got it done. Then I went to my bachelor's degree, did the same thing. And my master's degree, believe it or not, my master's degree I completed while I was on the CG combo team at AMC. I did that on the road. And to throw a funny story with that, I remember doing submissions in the air in offline mode. As soon as I hit the airport, I would hit submit, so that while I was on that Wi-Fi, I would submit my assignment so that I could get back on the next task that was due, that I had to do for that courseware. So I would tell you that you just got to find balance in your life and try and achieve the goals that you want to achieve. The second question was, how do warrant officers deconflict educational goals with professional organizational goals? So what I would tell you is balance is the key. You got to find that balance. You got to manage your time, because if you don't, others will. And if that G6 or wherever you're working, right, your boss is managing your time, it's not good for you, right? Because now you're doing everything they need you to do on their time. And it's good to help them out, right, to do your job. I don't mean to use the word help, but it's good to do your job. But if you're managing your own time and going to your boss and your leadership with things you got on your plate, saying, hey, sir, I'm doing this, 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 and this. I'm working these priorities, these priorities, these priorities. And by the way, I'm taking these courses, and these courses. They're going to look at you a little differently than as if they're having to micromanage you and give you tasks on their own. So I hope that answers your question, Mr. Makuakane, or Chief CW5 Makuakane. Did it? Any more questions on that one? No?
Chief, you have a hand raised.
Okay, go ahead. I can't see who the hand raise is.
That's Chief Walker.
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, Chief Brooks, you mentioned earlier about filtering yourself, but how do you deal with it when you are filtered, but you still get that high-ranking person who's the how dare you have an opinion type?
So I would tell you that you've heard the phrase "kill them with kindness," right? You have to be reserved, Chief. You have to not allow yourself to get to the level that they're at, right? You have to present things in a calm fashion that, and this is me talking, right? This is how I do things, right? And how you may do it is a little bit differently. But if you're noticing the way you're doing it is maybe too abrupt, it's probably time to dial it back, right? Ask that individual that you feel is not happy with the way you present things, how they would like you to best approach the situation or provide them with information. And I would say tailor it to that.
I mean, I already filter myself a lot, especially because I'm very, very concerned about expressing any type of frustration or anger at all ever, because I don't want to be considered, quote unquote, the angry black man. But sometimes I'm giving my opinion about a technical issue, and I'm a 255 alpha. I know what I'm talking about, and I don't hide my light under a bushel. And I'll get somebody who's a non-signal officer in my current unit who basically wants to treat me like I'm a lieutenant and be like, well, I outrank you and you don't know anything, so just shut up. And it's like, I withdraw because I have no clue how to deal with that.
Yeah. So I would tell you that, respect is earned, right, in organizations. And while that lieutenant may outrank you, I would, if I was in your situation, I would probably go offline with that lieutenant and have a conversation and figure out how to make things work, right? Because you got to be a team at the end of the day. And figure out how to make things work for the overall mission of the organization you're supporting. And so that's the only words of advice I can give you, Chief. I know I've got other people raising their hands. I hope that answered your call, but I would just have those conversations with those individuals that you're having issues with and work it out. Chief Fulagi has his hand raised. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on that right quick. And just saying that it's really about how you do it. And I'm not going to lie, I was the bad guy when I was younger. I mouthed off. I got too emotional, excited about stuff. You have to, no matter how proud you are, we know we're the smart folks. You have to take the personal side out of it. And depending upon who you're talking to, a lot of times the best way to do it, I'll just use an example. I've had a couple times this last year. I work for a 2-star that sometimes we don't agree. I don't tell him that in the room with all the other staff. I go behind closed doors, and when I word it more as, hey, sir, as your senior technical advisor, I feel like it's my due diligence to tell you why this won't work or why this is not the right way to go. And if he doesn't agree with me, there's no reason for me to get upset. I've done my job as his senior technical advisor and gave him why I believe it's that way. If he chooses to go the other route, we go that route. And the other thing I did when I was younger is when they would go that route, I would, if you would have freaking listened the first time, this wouldn't happen. Don't do that. It doesn't help you at all. Just go ahead and do what you already knew would work when the time comes. Make it fixed, and you'll be good to go.
That's good. That's good. Good input there, Chief Fulagi. I hope that helps you out there, Chief Walker, and moving forward. I see there's a question in here about the 255 Sierra career map. I would tell you that the career map that's in front of you is just used as a guide, right? You can look in DAPM 600-3. And also on the ACT website for your specific career map. I threw this up here because I'm an alpha, even though I tended to follow the Alpha November track. But the question was more along the lines of when the career map was going to be updated. And I can tell you that Proponent right now is in the process of doing so to be more in line with some of the initiatives that the Signal Regiment is working towards. Are there any more questions aside from that one?
Hey, this is Chief Gonzalez. We still have 2 more slides. Just friendly reminder, Chief.
Okay, next slide, please. All right, so bottom line up front, here's my 3 takeaways. This is what matters to me. This is what I think, right? Performance, right? I said work ethic and how you contribute. So I'll tell you this. The 3 things I'm gonna leave you with is do well no matter what or where you're at, right? Your performance and how you contribute matters because the work you do matters for whomever or what organization you're with. The second bullet, relationships. I think relationships you build should be long lasting and positive. I think your reputation will always precede you, whether it's favorable or not. Hopefully it is favorable because people are going to talk about you. And I'm sure a lot of folks are going to talk about me, hopefully favorably after this. You should have a good balance between your work and your family, right? Your family is there for you. You should always bounce things off of them that you can. Figure out what works for you guys and present that if needed to the leadership that you're with, right? So have a good balance. Performance matters, relationships matter, but most importantly, right? And here's the picture I put on here kind of closes it all up, right? That's HRC in the background, and that's all the employees that the photo was taken at that time with all the employees that work there. You can't do it on your own, right? It takes a team to be successful, family, friends, colleagues, mentors, etc. Reach out and start building your network if you haven't already begun to do so, right? This is, this means, even if you're a W1 or W2, get that W4 support, get that W5 support, right? And to me, a mentor is not somebody that just provides me advice on my job, but somebody that understands my family dynamics, that knows my son Landon by his first name, right? Mentorship to me is a friendship, right? And so I would encourage you to start building your network as you need to. But this does conclude my brief. I hope that you guys enjoyed or learned something from it, from what I had to share. I definitely appreciate the opportunity by 7th ID to bring me online to do this, and to participate in this event. And I stand ready for any additional questions that the collective may have. Okay, so Chief Adams did say that he's updating the career maps. And I don't see any more questions. Chief Gonzalez, do you have any more questions? Do you see any more questions in there?
No, Chief. It's I'm just seeing a lot of positive feedback. We're almost at that 1 hour mark. So if no one else has any questions, then we'll go ahead and thank you, Chief, for taking your time, sharing all this information with all of us. We all appreciate it and benefit from this, especially this level of insight. Definitely appreciate your honesty. For everyone here, I just want to put out a friendly reminder. We'll send out the calendar invite to the next Warrant Officer Leader Professional Development Session with Chief Bell and Chief Perez on 29 April. This thing will be recorded, and we'll make sure to get the files out. Colonel Geronimo already posted them in the chat, but we'll make sure it's in the file section as well. And I'm still not seeing any questions, Chief. So
that's good. So what I'll say is this last little thing here is my HRC spill, right? If any of you guys have not reached out to me and you want to do so, please do not hesitate. I say that because I am always available, right? Weekdays, weekends. Just reach out to me, and if I can help you, please let me know. And I know there are many other warrant officers out there that are eager to provide you support, but from an HRC's perspective, we are not against you, and that's my pitch. I say it that way because a lot of folks call up to HRC or are hesitant to call up to HRC because they're afraid that something may happen that may be unfavorable to them, right? That is not the case. Please reach out to the desk. We are one desk, and we are here to support you guys. Just, somebody said challenge accepted, right? I sincerely mean that, right? CW3 Eric Beige and I spend countless hours here to support you guys, and we enjoy doing it. We are here to support you, so please reach out to us if you need us. And I'll stay on the line if there's any more questions that may arise in the next 2 minutes.
Hey, Chief, thanks again. We appreciate your time, and I think you've answered everyone's questions. This might be a record.
That's a good deal. Offer stands for reservist as well. Yeah, no, if you're a reservist, you want to reach out to me, definitely reach out. I can put you in touch with the reserve side of the house. Or if you're just looking for an active duty counsel, some advice from the active duty side, I can do that for you too. Yeah, just send me a note, and we'll go from there. For the junior grade, how accurate is the aim positions? The AIM positions are 99% accurate. We tend to put commensurate level jobs in there that go with your next level move. It's just now on you to preference those jobs and advocate for yourself. And if you want to talk more about that, Mr. Coates, please give myself or Mr. Beige a call, and we can have a deeper conversation. Okay, is that it? That looks good. Still says it's being recorded. Slides went down. We got an aerosol in there, a little bit of airborne.
I just wanted to thank you for putting these on, and thanks 7ID for hosting it, and thank Mike for coming out and talking to everybody. Keep these coming. It's greatly appreciated.
Yeah, Chief Stanley, I think that this was a good initiative. I think that I think it's important for our, not just the active duty population, but for folks to know who's sitting in what seat and how they got there. I think that we should continue this moving forward. If folks can put a name, a face to a name, and where they're sitting at, what they do at that position, it's good stuff. Oh, good deal.
Chief, I understand that you guys do this regularly. I don't know how I got invited to this. I'm not part of 7th ID, but I'm pretty grateful for the opportunity. From the OCAR side of the house, this OCAR does a call every Wednesday for all reserve warrant officers. It's I've been participating in that for over a year now, and that has been really awesome, because it's everything from sergeants that are trying to become warrants to candidates, CW5s that have knowledge to share, and it's usually supposed to be an hour long, and we probably go over every week. So, but I understand correctly that this is a regular occurrence with you.
That's to you, Chief Gonzalez. That's not to me.
Yeah, Roger. So I'll send it back out on the distro, and I can also send you a PM as well. That way you have the next 3 invites. So I'm slowly putting those together. So the next one will be on 29 April with Chief Bell and Chief Perez, and then we'll also have Chief Wells on tap as well from DISA. So we'll sit down and come up with a schedule, and I'm always open for feedback as well. I'm very approachable, so you can always shoot me a message on Teams or email me, and I can always get in contact with you that way as well.
Fantastic, thanks.
Hey Louis, this is Link. Can you hear me?
Roger, Chief.
Hey, so what I have noticed, have you guys started thinking about creating a Teams group? I know knowing that CBR is gonna expire come June, but at least start looking on the IO5 side to create a Teams channel so we can start so you guys can start populating individuals like that or whoever wants to jump in there. Yes, Colonel Geronimo, sir. Over.
No, Link. So what we did was we're actually going to launch it. It's going to be called the Community of Communicators Leadership Development Forum. So we're opening that up in multiple different social media platforms to include Zoom for Gov and things like that. So you'll see that coming soon from Louis.
Okay. All right, Roger, sir.
So right now.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any more questions.
Hey, Mike, thanks. Great job, and I appreciate you using me as an example, sir. Over.
I was trying to just capitalize a little more on the what is success, right? Because a lot of folks look at it from just a work perspective, and it's more holistic than that. Success is my son going off to college, me retiring at a decent rank, and picking up a good civilian job, right? So, yeah, I just wanted to capitalize that, Chief. Thanks.
Hey, you guys have a great. Hey, you guys have a great weekend and enjoyed it and enjoy it. Talk to you guys soon. I'm signing out. Over.
Thanks, Chief. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Chief. Hey, Chief Brooks, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. That's okay.
I'm good, sir. Whenever you want to kill it, I'm just standing by.
All right. Yeah, me too. I think this is good. Hey, we'll talk offline. Thanks, Chief. Thanks a lot.
Okay. Thanks, team. Appreciate it. Out here.